All right, how's the mic? Mic okay? Better? All right, just give me a second, guys. I'm trying to connect to the internet. Okay, I'm not doing that. So basically, I'm up here to show you guys the Wires X. If anybody hasn't used it, it's a pretty fun aspect of it, of ham radio, for me anyway. I can't afford the big towers, expensive antennas, 1,000, 2,000 feet of coax, plus the radio equipment, 1,500 watt linears and all that kind of stuff. Plus LifeLight does their 2 loops around my house, so having a tower up would really tick them guys off. So, Yaesu has what they call Wires X. You can access it if the tower has that capability, and most of them do these days. Our tower has the capabilities, but they don't have internet on the hill yet. So, Wires X, unless you have your own node, which is what this box is, you need a node radio. Some of the old Yaesus, I think, Pete, 879s or something like that. Pete, 879 is a node radio, analog only.
Yeah.
And the newer one is, I mean, the least expensive one you can get is the 100DR. Runs about $319. It's a digital, analog, APRS, all the fun stuff. You can use it as a radio, or you can use it as a node radio. So you need a radio that will accept the node. You'll have your own node, your own numbers, so it's like yours privately.
But you have to dedicate that radio to that only, correct?
While it's on, yeah.
Okay.
So you could, if you're tired of Wires X and you want to just go back to 910,
Yeah.
switch off the node and you're back on normal thing. Thing that I found out, because there's not a lot of nodes in Pittsfield, I think there's only 3. Myself, W1DWA, and I can't remember the other one, but I think we have 3 in this area. The nice part is I like to share, so when I set my node up, I leave it open. I don't put any kind of CTCSS on it or anything, so anybody on that particular frequency can use my node. It will show.
If I'm driving through and I just plug it into the radio, I can hit your node.
You can hit my node within, I think I can reach to Tanglewood. So I got that area. And quite a few folks do, but when you're talking to somebody, they're going to say, when I show you the screen, it's going to show that it's my call sign that comes up because it's my node.
Yeah.
So when somebody says, well, you just gave your call sign as X, but I see KC1BYD on the screen, it's because you're going through my node, which is perfectly legit, but you know, they're going to be confused on the other end, whoever you're talking to. But I figure it would get people interested in maybe, you know, I get texts saying, hey, is your node up? So I kind of like that.
Now, can you pick your own frequency for your node, or do they tell you what you have
Yes,
to use?
you can pick your own. I was using a local calling frequency, and there was a couple guys that got irritated with it, and I'm like, well, I figured if I put it on a calling frequency, instead of just sitting there arbitrarily calling somebody and hoping somebody comes back. Well, there you go. So I changed it, and a gentleman gave me a frequency to use. So right now I'm just trying to get a good signal, and I'm sorry it's taken so long. But I don't understand why I'm not connecting. It says BHS is open, but it's not allowing me to be open. Of course, when it's my time, I have to stand here looking like a boob. So if anybody has one of these, or any Yaesu, this is basically a Yaesu product. If you're interested in DMR and all the other digital aspects, they sell a RF Shark, it's called. So you can actually use your Yaesu System Fusion and cross over into DMR. And if you happen to have, I believe it's a Kenwood and the other different ones that do DMR, you can actually cross into Yaesu System Fusion at the same time. Pete, what's the deal with the internet here? Do you know?
You might have to plug into the internet to do some hardline in.
So right now, I'm on a simplex frequency of 145.350. It's not letting me, man. All right. Somebody want to fill in for a second while I just kind of got put on the spot for this, so.
No internet?
Huh?
No internet?
Yeah, I can't get their internet working. I'm going to try my cell phone. But it's really a neat thing. And you can, without all the towers, without all the power and the coax and stuff, you can literally talk around the world. You just got to remember your time. You know, I sitting there having my first cup of coffee at 7, 8 in the morning, and you know, you think of what that time zone is in, you know, England or the Netherlands or Russia or Japan or something like that. You know, you're going to hear some oddball people at oddball times because, you know, they're on a totally different time frame than we are. But it's really nice to talk to these folks around the world. Like I said, you sit there with a Bofang and talk on 1 watt, and a lot of the older hams, I've been told by them that that's not true ham radio. But
I'm changing, but that was, if you asked me that a year ago, I would have said that. It's like,
yeah.
hell, you can pick up your cell phone and talk to somebody in England.
Right. And believe it or not, I don't understand Echolink.
I look at it differently now.
You know, I don't understand the Echolink at all. I know it's connected to the towers. I know, you know, you can pick up your cell phone or tablet.
Echolink doesn't even need radios. It's
Yeah.
self-sufficient.
Right, which to me, this thing is...
That's not ham radio. When you go peer-to-peer, Echolink.
Right.
When you go from your radio into the repeater,
Yeah, that
set up
makes it a little different.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like I got internet finally. We're connected to the cell phone. All right, so what I do is Yaesu and Time Warner Cable and Verizon Wireless. You're going to pull out what little bit of hair you have left dealing with these folks because they don't understand it.
That's what I was afraid of.
When you try to call them and say, I need port, and unless you're good enough with your own router to open it up and get into your ports, you're going to have to open up certain ports to make the box work. So if you're fluent enough, if you're not, you have to call them for support. They're going to ask you, what's it for? What is it for? And when you tell them, I'm going to take a RF type radio, hook it into the computer, run it through the router, they're gonna, tier 4 is gonna, that's the top tier of their tech support.
They don't have it.
They have no idea. They open up the book, start asking you the standard questions. It's frustrating.
So Verizon can do it? Because I read online, I saw a lot of things that say if you've got Verizon Jetpack, forget it, you can't do it.
If you have Verizon, which I do, basically what you want to do is run a VPN, okay? And that VPN, hey Pete, while I'm talking, can you get a hold of NHT and find out what the, have him text me the username and password for the VPN? Yeah, my password. I'm sorry?
Oh, I can tease him. He's perking up because you're talking his language. He's confused.
Good. Have you heard of Viper VPN?
I'm sorry?
Viper VPN.
Micro VPN?
Viper.
Oh, Viper VPN. Not that particular one, no.
Okay, so we use Viper. It was really, really easy to set up.
What did you say, VPN?
Viper VPN. It's VYPR VPN.
Virtual Private Network.
Yep.
Oh, that's it, okay.
So when you set this up, it bypasses even your home router. You don't have to open up ports. You don't have to do squat. You run the VPN. It'll go right through your firewall. It'll do everything. Verizon, the most irritating people on the planet. The cell phones have no ports to open.
Well, excuse me, just one question before you get too much into that. If I have both available, all right, Time Warner and Verizon, would you suggest one over the other?
I have Time Warner at home, and I have Verizon for a cell phone service.
Yeah.
So when I take my
Same with
kit,
me.
I made it mobile, which both Yasu and everybody else said it couldn't be done.
Right.
I said it's going to be done because I'm in some really remote locations for work. And quite honestly, a 10-hour shift sitting there looking at bears is boring. So this goes with me.
So would it be better if I used the Verizon and then I could,
If you could use whatever, if you got unlimited data, I don't see why not. If you got your home Wi-Fi, if you're going to leave it at home, if you're going to put it in the car for traveling, whatever you're going to do with it.
well, that would be one of the questions I would have is like, am I going to need it in the car? I mean, why can't I just work through some of the repeaters on here? Wouldn't that be easier? If I can.
Greylock, they're all capable, but they have no internet to the bunkers yet. So we can't just use the feature on the radio and hit wires X. Once they get internet on Greylock
So
or
I
whatever,
have to be near a wires X enabled repeater
to use just the radio.
to use just my radio in the car.
Right.
But if I took my jetpack in my car with me,
Yep.
then I can do it like what you're doing?
Just like this. You need a PC, you need a cell phone, you need an internet connectivity of some sort. If the hospitals work, I've used theirs. But if you run the VPN, it'll bypass all the port checks, all the other junk that goes with it.
So I can do
And
that
ripping out of
VPN,
there.
whether I'm using it at home, whether I'm setting up a home or in my, either way.
Yep. The first thing I do, I don't care anymore. I just fire up the VPN, and that's it.
Is it a program I download?
Yes. Most computers have VPNs, but you'd have to configure it. What I like about Viper, and I don't work for them, I'm not making money. It does cost a fee per year. But the nice part is once you download it, install it, it just works. It just worked.
VYPR.
VYPR VPN. It has the symbol is like a snake, like a tornado.
Yeah.
And radio operator should be prepared to have it working in any.
Right. So,
So your car, now you gotta get a laptop in the car.
I got laptops all over my house.
yep.
Okay, now you gotta put one in the
I'm always buying the newest one that comes out, so I got stacks of them.
There you go.
Almost, not literally, but
So the other ones,
pretty much. Yeah. Dust collectors.
So, Pete, do we want to move on until I get that set up?
Yeah,
But I just wanted to give everybody pretty much a really quick deal on this. I apologize about the delay, but when the computer updated, apparently it wiped out my password. So, but you can use a VPN to get through anything you need. And again, it's personal choices. You want to use Windows, you want to use you'll have to figure out how to configure that. But like I said, for stupid people and VPNs, I don't get along with them very well. But when I've tried probably about 9, 10, 12 of them, they all conflicted with something. If it wasn't one thing, it was another, and it was a lot of just irritation. When I found this program, literally, I turned it on, I said, what's it going to hurt? I turned on everything, and it just worked. Myself, I like to connect to Belmont, Texas. So when I'm online, I go to Belmont, Texas. It's a node called AmericaLink. AmericaLink, everybody in America pretty much signs onto Belmont's.
Why do you have to go to Texas?
Because I like going there.
Okay.
You don't have to go there. You can go, as the list populates, you can pick anywhere in the world you want to talk to, or any individual you want to talk to. But if you sign on to AmericaLink, it's an easy connection to talk to the world. Because people from Japan, England...
But why, what I'm saying is, why Texas? Why can't you get on that from any other locations? Or does it have to do with a repeater, or what?
It has to do with, I think, their repeater.
Okay.
Every one of their repeaters throughout Texas is linked to that node.
Okay.
So those guys driving around, again, it's repeater to repeater and linked to the world.
Right.
So
That's the part I don't get. I'll have to just play with it, I guess.
And as you sit there and listen to it, their nets, if you want to fall asleep, their check-ins, they start with women and children first. Then they work their ways down until they get to, like, the East Coast, the middle of the United States, and the West Coast. Because there's just a ton of people. Yeah. So,
3, 4, 5 hour nets.
yeah. And it's not like 9/10s where 15 minutes later we're done. It takes a while. And the nice part about the guys in Belmont is you can actually there's a text box on there. You can tell them I'm pre-checking in. Mm-hmm. You know, so you don't have to wait that long. But Jason and I were the first two, I believe, to go live with a mobile kit. Jason, N1HT, runs an 18-wheeler up and down the East Coast. So he was the guinea pig. He put one in his truck, and we said, we're going to get you running. And we got him running, and then I built this. These aren't expensive to make. I was trying to find a box. They're quite expensive. Get a gator box, this, that, or other thing. This is a gasketed seal, front and back. I got it for, what is it, MCM Electronics. Decent quality stuff, decent prices. The box here is a 4RU. I paid $62 for it. It's a 4RU, but I got shelves that take up 2 spaces because I had a lot of crap to put in here. I got a power strip, switched everything. Like I said, I got a small 220, the big rig, you know, the body of this radio. This can come out if I want to. The scanner, the wires X. I got an external speaker. It's all funneled through to that old antenna over there. It files into a triplexer mixer, so I can use a tri-band antenna with all the different frequency jammed together through that one unit. So I actually squeezed it all into that little box. But, all right, Pete? I'll try to get that password and I'll come back to this.
Yeah, I texted Jason.
Okay.
Okay. And I think after that, we'll break for lunch.
Awesome. We got an order too. All right, guys, I am sorry about that snafu. It stinks. Computer did an update and wiped all my stuff out. So I had to grab it again.
And I just put it in your pocket.
Yeah, about that. So basically, anybody on 145, 350 right now on any of the HTs that you have, we are linked with that Viper VPN. This is the screen you see. It's going to populate a list so that you can see who's out there and where they're from. So all the countries throughout the world are going to be on your screen right here. On this side of the screen is the text box. You can talk to individual stations, text, you know, just like your phone text. And in this box up here is everybody that is logged into America Link right now. Personal preferences. We have to give our call signs every 10 minutes. The software is great because you can program it to do it for you, either CW or voice. Just be aware if you're using this and you switch back to 910 or whatever frequency, this software is running. Every 10 minutes, I have a little Chinese lady on here. It says my call sign. So in the middle of the net one day, I hear this lady going, KC1BYD, connected to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm like, how's that happen? It took me about 2 days to figure out that if that software is open, even though you're not connected, it says right here that we're connected to Wires X. That's going to bleed through to whatever frequency you're on. So
when you're done with it, you got to
just hit the X button and shut it off. But right now we are connected to Belmont, Texas, and see if I can't get somebody for you guys.
So you're looking, all that stuff on the screen is like the one room that you're looking at?
This is just America Link right now. So America Link is worldwide. So anybody that's out there right now, this is all the call signs that are out there. ND is node, which means they have a node. What is it, RPT or something?
That's a
A repeater. Yeah, RPT is repeater. So that's depending on who you're talking to. And right now we got somebody actually talking digital now.
So that comes back out as digital.
It comes back out digital if you're in digital mode.
Mike 0, SBE, AES, good morning, or good afternoon to you. Good morning for me. The name here is Brad. Bravo 11 David. Thank you.
So that you can't squelch. Some radios can or cannot squelch out that digital tone. The nice part about this is
yes,
don't
good
have
morning here, good afternoon here,
a digital radio.
name is Keith.
You can actually use your Bofang.
Calling.
You can tone it. You take it completely out of digital and put it in analog mode.
So
Then
SBP,
you're going to hear these guys in digital.
NAES,
This is where I get lost. You're going to hear these guys talking digitally, but it's going to come out on your analog radio.
We are in Elkhart, Indiana, USA, about 120 miles, about 120 miles due east of Chicago. Most people know Chicago, but worldwide.
His call is N8AES in Illinois somewhere.
I'm not going to be here. I'd come back to you and see where you were calling from.
Up here, you're going to see whoever's talking is going to light up green.
A mile and a half, 2 miles from the
You're going to light up.
So, back to you there, NAES.
We really want to know you.
Any questions, or anybody want to give it a shot while we got it running, or? Did you? We got 2 MOS BP, N8 AES. Those are the 2 guys talking.
My daughter got married last Sunday.
But like I said, this is, everybody is now, what I'm hooked to right now is Belmont, Texas. It's called America Link node. If you ever hear the nodes, everybody has a node number. I think it's 218-0.
Maybe about
I think is the node number.
degrees, but it was a clear
If you're in here,
sky,
and the way I have my software set up, and my buddy Jason, who's driving in the 18-wheeler, if he wants to have a private conversation, we use the DTMF tones. He can actually pull me out of this room
Yes, that's
stick
right.
me in
I
your
thought
node
I
comes
was
with a
gonna go
node
that
number
way.
and a room number. You
Yeah,
can bring me to my
I know,
room
I
number.
know what you're at.
You can have a private conversation with somebody, husband and wife, whatever, secluded, and the minute he disconnects, or I disconnect, I have it set to automatically revert me back to, and automatically connect back to America Link.
I've been in Chicago,
So you go on your website, like I
Indiana,
get my stuff ready at home and
to get to
apply for that
Michigan.
number.
What you'll do is, when you get one of these boxes, you have to take the serial number off the box
The only place I can
and
remember
apply for the room number.
actually
It takes
seeing wild snails,
three days
Ghana,
on a good time, depending on how many they got ahead of you. But it takes typically about 3 days. You get your two numbers. You set them up however you want. You can add pictures.
Yeah, I got lost
Low,
in Gary, Indiana. And my parents moved
low
back from the
megapixels.
Philippines. And
They won't take a
I
big
got on a
picture.
bus from over here, airport, and stopped
You can
in
apply to
Gary,
news.
and,
It's kind of like you can do a
everybody
news
got off
feed
the bus, but
or whatever you want
apparently I
to
was asleep on the bus, and the bus went to bus corruption, and
Yes.
my parents were
Yep.
frantically
And when you download this,
looking
this is
for
their
me in
software.
1970,
And like I said, you can just
somewhere
scan
around
through
there.
any one of these lists.
And,
One's a node room, and one
they
is
found out
a
that
user
I was on the
room.
bus, and
So you'll have one of
started leaving
each.
the bus and found
So if I'm
me.
trying to find you, I can find you by
So they
name.
referred me to my parents.
You can sort by
and,
name,
Didn't
country,
even ask for a ransom. So how about
different ways to
that?
search, by name,
Yeah, Gary
or
was
by room
predicament at
number,
that
or node.
point in time, the early
Part of that,
70s. It was
still not completely
not a
finished.
real
That
good way
buffer
to be honest
thing
with
you
you,
talked about,
sure.
now is that gonna be?
But, well,
find that,
next
download
thing you
it,
over
is
here
it
to
gonna-
Yeah,
visit
it's
your
actually,
gonna let me
Get
figure
it
out
going.
everything on my own?
You'll have to look me up. And,
There's Viper right now.
We're not too far
We're
from the
connected
elevator.
to-
We can
Okay.
put an eyeball on each other.
I think I connected to New York,
So,
but it tells you,
just about home here, so this is going to be final.
Authorize it or
Keep
call
it nice
time
talking with
No.
you. You got a good memory.
But I
And
have to pick one of those two,
thanks
right?
again for asking about my daughter's wedding in beautiful. They're in Cancun now. They'll be back.
once you have Viper, once you have it, again, you have to
to
subscribe to this. It's well worth the $20 or whatever it is a year.
Yeah.
But once you get this and install it, all you hit is where it says disconnect now, you'll hit connect. Where do you want to connect to? There's worldwide connections you can make, Taiwan, Japan, it doesn't
How
matter.
does it know what router I'm using, or doesn't it matter?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because what you're doing is you're bypassing it all. You just want an internet connection.
Yeah,
So if you have like right now I'm using the hotspot on my Verizon wireless phone, and it goes on the PC end. When I first started the VPNs, this is how dumb I am, I put the VPN on my phone. The phone does nothing, I found out. So it goes on your PC that's connected to your node. So all you do is connect. Where do you want to connect? I usually connect to New York because it's the fastest connection. So I connect to New York. The nice part about this is we found even if you have a metered connection or a data plan, believe it or not, talking through this daily, we talk through it almost every day, listen to it nonstop. The data usage is minimal. I thought this thing would use gigs worth. It doesn't use gigs worth of data a month. So even if you have a metered pay-per-go or pay-as-you-go type plan, it works.
It's not analog no more, it's your digital, so it's a lot less data.
And it works flawlessly.
Probably eat the data right up.
You know, it works flawlessly.
Yeah.
And like I said, you could be sitting there having your coffee in the morning, talk to whoever you want. And it's fun just to get out there. I mean, this is my preference because there's a lot more people in this room. I mean, you go to some of the rooms, there's 4 or 5. You wait all day, you don't hear anybody. Depending on where they're at in the world, you could be waiting all day because you're in bed when they wake up.
If I'm sitting in my shack, and this is all hooked up, and I'm drinking my coffee, I don't have to use a handheld to access this, do I? I mean, can I pick
Yes,
up?
you do. Because right now
What about
you're
another base station radio?
okay.
Something besides that one, right? In other words, you're saying?
Yes, anything besides that. But if you're going to funnel 50 watts into your antenna that's sitting next to you, I don't think 50 watts into your radio would be a good idea, and that's just me.
Yeah, I got you.
But again, any portable, any radio.
I think I see John on his Verizon lawnmower with
I've already got that plan.
a, with a
Little antenna on the back.
Yep.
So that's about it. I mean, it's basically a fun toy. Cost effective, $319 for the radio, about, for the 100.
$299 I paid for mine.
And this box here is 120, I paid $125 for it. Comes with everything you need, the cord, simple USB connection. That's it. This radio, I know my 400's a repeater, I think this one is too, so you can crossband repeat and all that fun stuff. But you press the 2 buttons at the same time and you power the radio on, it puts you into Wires X mode. When you're ready, shut the radio back off, hit the 2 buttons again, turn it back on, it'll shoot back to the radio.
Saw that on YouTube.
It's a lot of fun. And like I said, for people like me that cannot afford the big, or have the town argue with me and the life flight guys argue with me because I'm in their flight path, I just don't want to argue with them. So, cost effective. Everybody has a PC. Everybody has a USB port connected. They will. I tested it with a 10, what do you call those things? You have one USB into the computer, and then you have 10 outlets. You can plug 10 other USB things in. No, a hub, a USB hub. It actually works through a hub too.
Oh, yeah, okay, because sometimes anything else you put online.
Yeah, it starts lagging or something really stupid. So if you do have a, like mine, I think it's a 10 port,
There's a lot of ports on here.
you just, it powers right through the port, everything.
I just
So
got to figure out if I'm going to buy an FTM 400 or another one of these.
I have the 400 in the car. I tried it at
I
home
just don't know if I can justify that extra money for what you're getting.
for a node. Yeah,
Wait,
and
what's the VE3 RGB?
We'll see what I would do in that case is put my 100 in the house and then put the 400 in the car.
yeah, and the you'd have to research online. The Yaesu, I keep forgetting the model numbers, but the older ones, they are node capable, but it's only analog. Nothing wrong with the analog in here. If you heard it in analog, you wouldn't miss a beat, because they've done a lot of work in Texas.
Well, you know what else I've got is a 3200 that I'm not using.
3200, 3100, not compatible for a node.
Okay.
That's the one disappointing
Well, no,
fact
it has
of
to
those
have a
radios.
port in the back for the,
Yeah. They did not make that. So,
Okay.
any other questions? I will shut everything down. Okay. Thank you for, again, for the debacle of the first attempt.
Okay, we have one more guy in the street. You, Rich?
That is me. Good to see you,
Good
sir.
not to see you. Whatever applies. I gotta go on.
Oh, I'm going to wire you. I got a nice, I got the TV cameras rolling.
I will never see it.
We're just going to stuff everything in your pocket for now.
Okay, that's cool. Well, here, let me take my glasses.
And let me get you in there. And I do have some wires hanging, so.
That's fine. I'll keep an eye out for them.
Okay.
Pardon the pun.
Is you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
John, you ready?
Make sure he doesn't trip over the wire.
Am I ready? So, Phil, it's all you.
Okay. You know, see the antenna? Right there in the front of the truck, not the little one, that's the satellite. But in the front of the truck, it's actually, the black part of it is a CB antenna. And I just put a bigger whip on it. And if you all want to come up and take it, I'll pull it down, you can take a quick look at it.
So Pete decided you're taking your test tomorrow. And I wouldn't use this in public, but you got a boner sticking out. A brass boner. Just gotta know how to use it, brother. I know how to use it. Give me this.
My ground plane is especially wrapped around the connector.
Oh, look. Flame. Operator error. You want a book of matches?
That one didn't work.
Keep them.
I decided, well, I got a lighter. It's just
Any truck. Anything. As long as it's like John said, as long as it transmits like under electrical. Now the ground wire, different lengths, portable setup, it's not hooked to nothing, it's just laying there. I found a piece
That's what he says. You were doing excellently. The only thing I can hear in my fucking earpieces. Headphones. B. Hey. See?
And that's it.
Hey.
And then we'll go all to the back of the truck here.
It's you. Tell me
You want to write this down?
I don't.
No. The coax from the antenna comes in.
I'm lazy filming.
Right here. Comes into the tuner. This basically, what this is the husband going to the wife. You're okay, you're awesome, everything's beautiful, the antenna's working great. So the wife is happy. This is the wife. Always look at it. The wife is happy, she'll have a great old time.
All right. I can see the thing. So we're going digital, the fun stuff. Can't read it up there. We use a good old-fashioned international Morse code when sending CW on a ham band. Anybody have? Not yet? It's a lot of fun. There's no delete key. My biggest thing is going through, I start sending somebody something by hand. My brain and my fingers not cooperating. I mess up on a word. The guy on the other end is waiting for you. So I gave that up to use. I still do the digital, and a lot of people call that cheating, but at least I can keep up with them and decode it and keep going. It's called the International Morse Code. I like the straight B key because it keeps me from good dits and das as I'm learning to send Morse code. It is a lot of fun. They have oscillators out there. You can practice sitting in your, it's just a long piece with a speaker on it, so you can hear how well you're doing, make mistakes, nobody's hearing it, and you're not actually sending it at that time. If you, damn it. If you decide to do some CW sending, great. Every ham knows CW, even though it's no longer part of the ham test, which I didn't do it because of that reason, because I was no good at it. You can use a straight key or an electronic keyer. Those are relatively inexpensive. If you want just that setup, there's many different ways you can do it, even with just simple software. You can even generate CW with a computer with the software. You don't expect, but don't expect the computer to be able to read CW letters as well as your good old ears and brain. That I kind of disagree with, because a ham radio deluxe is a good, it does decode, I think, fairly well, and there's generally not a lot of missed stuff on there. Some new technician class operators start out on the air exclusively with their computers and small ham radio transceivers. A handheld could allow packet communication, similar to short messages texting, but on ham channels. A larger multi-code base station tied to your computer and its sound card could lead to exciting PSK31, which it is very exciting. Worldwide data communication on the 10-meter band, and for those of you who enjoy bouncing signals off the moon and meteors, MFSK is a fabulous digital VHF, UHF mode where your computer does all the work and sorting out of the signals and separating all that noise. So MFSK and packet and PSK31 data modes let your laptop and home computer do all the things for you digitally. You just have to sift through the waterfall and such to find the signals that you're looking for. And believe it or not, I don't know if, I forgot if it's in here or not, but RTTY, the good old-fashioned radio teletype, everybody says it's dead. It's not dead. It's still going on, and it's a lot of fun to dig up a signal like that. I talked to Russia one day on 62 watts from Pittsfield, so it's a lot of fun when you can catch something like that. Here's a basic diagram of what that does. The packet modem, also known as a TNC, goes between your computer and the radio. It handles all that crunching for you, so you don't have to think about it. So, in between your handheld or your mobile radio and the computer is a device called Terminal Node Controller, abbreviated TNC. Some mobile and handheld radios already have TNC built in. Most of the newer ones do. Your little handheld plugs into the terminal node controller, and the TNC that hooks up to your mobile device or laptop for texting or text messaging. Packet radio can be used for many important purposes in ham radio. Pete, I forgot to tell you that was paused. Did you unpause it?
Yes.
Okay.
We're recording.
Awesome. Packet radio can be used for important purposes in ham radio. As emergency responders, bulletin boards, packet clusters, reports on noteworthy long-range stations showing up on the radio dial. Wireless messaging, and my favorite automatic position reporting system known as APRS, packet bursts send out a latitude-longitude to other stations, some of which are digipeated, which Greylock does, that will relay my position on the internet for everyone licensed or not to see where I am. Additional features of APRS using packets include remote weather station monitoring, short text messaging, emergency alert, and the tie-in to a vehicle navigation device for graphically see where other APRS users are located around you on the map. To do this, you will need a GPS receiver outputting NMEA 0183 data and a simple APRS TNC with some of them already built into the ham radio equipment. Someone said here that they had a 400DR. Everything's automatic. Neat features about that is if you send out an emergency signal and it comes up on my screen, I can lock that. My radio will take me right to you. I don't have to wait for the 3 points that the police department needs hours later to find out that you had a broken leg and you've now done passed out. Any one of us that run APRS, you know, we can just get right to you. Packets, also fun. People ask us all the time, why do you want to bounce a signal off the moon? Common answer is because we can. Because we can. On APRS, I figured out how to email from my handheld. Why would you do this? A non-ham cannot respond. It's a send only. Because nobody can verify that the receiving person is a radio operator. But why would you email? You went out hunting, you got hurt, you can actually send an email to your wife, friend, or whatever and say, hey, I need some help. And then throw your APRS on emergency. There's a couple of shots of TNCs and the Kenwood. I don't know much about Kenwood, but I bet you 10 to 1 that one has built-in, all the built-in goodies right there. Ham radios and computers are made for each other. I believe that. If your laptop or home computer was built with a built-in sound card, you can see what is sent via digital modes like CW and PSK31, radio teleprinter, and nearly a dozen other digital modes, most of which sound like hash, it does, to your ear when listening to the receiver. WestMountainRadio.com, good for parts and information on that, is a good site to visit for multi-rig interface equipment that goes between your ham gear and computer. Let your laptop with a sound card with appropriate software do the decoding of your digital messages. You get your computer ready for some technical class fun. Packet radio is a great way to send blocks of information quickly over the airwaves. Your packet will contain the header with a full call sign of the station that you wish to reach, and several steps of error detection and error repeat requests. So, all of these features are included when you send a packet. My packets go out every 2 minutes from my car. I believe I have my email, my call sign, longitude, latitude, and the weather in that packet. So when you receive it on your radio, that'll be mine. I don't remember, Dave, do you send your packets at about the same? You don't have it on? So it's a good way to see. The software we use is aprs.fi. You can actually hover your mouse over one of my beacons and see my speed, where I'm going, my altitude, the email, what frequency I'm listening to. So if you were in that relative area, you'd be able just to pick up the mic and make a call if you wanted to. ARQ stands for Automatic Repeat Request, a system that lets your digital station automatically ask the other station to say again a set of missed characters. It's not like your signal gets sent out, and if it's not sent, it just gets lost. The commercial version of AMTOR and SITOR is still used on the high seas of third-party radio traffic, as well as weather bulletins. PACTOR is largely supplemented by AMTOR because it has a full ASCII character set, whereas AMTOR, only the uppercase letters. PACTOR and similar systems are capable of operating in the ARQ mode, or the FEC, forward error correction mode, depending on whether they are engaged primarily in two-way or one-way broadcast communications. So the ARQ, I believe, will be on the test for that question. You are going to have a blast sending data with your laptop and ham set. And it is, if you're, as my stepsons and wife call me, a computer dork. I love it. I absolutely love it. However, when multipath signals are added and subtracted to your signal, error rates are likely to increase. Since the earliest days of data communication, which includes Morse code, by the way, hams have experimented with such methods as diversity reception and using multiple antennas and receivers to reduce the multipath problems. I think that's mostly done now digitally with error corrections. Want to look at a GPS map and see other ham stations located around you? APRS can do that for you. APRS is an extension of classic amateur packet technology. It is an application level protocol that rides on top of the lower layers of packet technology. Therefore, any packet TNC can be used to transport APRS data. Going back to the Yaesus, because I don't own anything else, on my 400DR and the computer, you can actually not only see the map, but if you do a split screen, you can actually, there's a pan tilt zoom option on there. When you do a split screen, the lower screen, you're actually looking out the person's window that you're looking at their packet. So if you're in, sitting at the red light in front of Big Y, you can actually pan down the side streets, look forward and see what they're seeing, which is kind of a neat feature. Now that GPS equipment is sized down to fit into your cell phones and ham radios with built-in TNCs for APRS, allows you to automatically send your latitude, longitude, and position packets. For every couple of minutes with nothing more than a little VHF handheld and postage stamp size PCS receiver. GPS receiver. What did I say?
CPS?
Yeah, okay. Got to look through the good part of my glasses. The output of your GPS receiver is an NMEA 0183 format. That will connect to the terminal node controller that is either built in or external to your handheld mobile radio. PSK stands for phase shift keying. I know that's going to be on the test. And if you listen carefully, a little warble is indeed information being passed over an ultra-narrow carrier. Hear this on the enclosed CD, which I don't believe we have, correct? No. Here's a picture of a nice-looking radio that looks rather expensive. Down on 10-meter band, on multi-mode radio, you may hear the sound of a constant whistle. If you listen carefully, you can even hear a slight warble. And that warble is conveying information that is on a continuous carrier called PSK31. PSK31 is remarkable digital mode that slices through the interference and gets the message through. Sometimes from here to the moon and back again. While the transmission rate is about normal typing speed, it is plenty fast enough to converse with other hams via your computer and multi-mode radio on many of the technical class authorized frequencies. With software on your computer, if you're doing, say, CW, this guy is doing 90 words a minute, and you're new to all this. You're not going to be able to copy it by ear yet. The software is nice because when you type whatever it is you want to reply, it'll speed it up to his level, and it'll drop his level down to you when you receive it. So it's not like, oh, I can't talk to this guy. The computer actually does well with it. I mean, most of these new computers have great CPUs in them and stuff like that. So, hundreds of ham radio operators throughout the world have tried their home computers and ham sets to the internet. The system is called WinLink 2000, Echolink, and IRLP. These free gateway stations are fully automatic and provide ham radio operators access to the internet for sending and receiving emails. VoIP allows rather simple gateway methods between the amateur radio and the commercial internet. The IRLP uses VoIP to connect to repeaters. And I don't know too much about Echolink, but I think that's the way Echolink works, right?
Yeah.
Your kind of cell phone, tablets.
Cell phone, tablets, your computers. Once you get licensed, you can actually get into Echolink and jump on repeaters across the world, talk on your telephone with VoIP.
And like the gentleman says, he was one that agreed with me that the older hams think that this was taboo, this isn't real ham. That's kind of what I think of Echolink, because if I want to make a phone call, I'll make a phone call. I don't want to use this to, you know, mess with ham radio. You know?
Make a phone call to the repeater, and Echolink
right.
is tied into repeaters, so you could be on Echolink and somebody's on their 2-meter 440 radio at home.
Yep. So, let's see. VoIP allows rather simple gateway to the methods between amateur radio and internet access. The IRLP uses VoIP to connect to repeaters. We covered that. IRLP nodes are basically phone numbers which access the node in question. DTMF signals sent from the keypad of your handheld or mobile microphone are the best practical way to access these. That was the same thing with Wires X. If you want to go to somebody's node, you simply press the push to talk, dial the node if you know it. And if you do it enough, you'll know that, you know, somebody is 21808 or, you know, whatever their number is. Hold down the push to talk and go right to their node. One of the most amazing things about the TCP/IP protocol, around which the entire internet was wrapped, is how well it adapts to new technologies. Not even remotely through when it was first put together. The voice over internet IP uses a well-established TCP/IP packet switching. That'll probably be on the test. I imagine everything in red will be on the test. To switch packets of voice over exactly the same hardware as everything else internet related.
Just so we know, anything in red would be on the test.
Yep. So the tones that you hear, and Dave spoke of earlier that we were having a problem with on the repeater, was somebody actually keying up and just hitting. Basically, your number keys becomes the tone. That's the way to access pretty much anything digital. That would be a news. If you get into Wires X, you can actually gain news from around the world by entering different nodes through DTMF. And you can program those, so you don't have to hit the same numbers each and every time. Okay? Your best source for a list of voice over internet protocols, VoIP nodes, is in a repeater directory, or if you go with the Yaesu version, on their site you'll have all the list of nodes. And you can find that at therepeaterbook.com. Most new handhelds have a maximum of 9 programmable memories for a speed dial number sending. Store your favorite IRLP nodes in your radio speed dial, and you won't need to remember them node numbers and manually tap them in the keyboard, so I was a slide ahead. NTSC is the standard for fast send color television signals. For analog ham radio ATV stations, TV broadcasters have made the switch to all digital, so hams are the ones that stick with the tried and proven NTS analog transmission. And it stands for National Television System Committee. A fascinating type of ham radio operation is called fast scan television, abbreviated ATV. Hams can send fast scan television pictures directly through a special fast scan television repeater over hundreds of miles. Fast scan TV is a very wide, about 6 megahertz, and can be found on the 70-meter band and higher, where equipment cost is modest, especially if you already own a video camera. I have yet to try that, but it sounds like fun. I heard it was fun. I think Obi does that, right? Slow scan TV?
I do that.
Do you? All right, so questions. What code is used when sending CW in the amateur bands? Which of the following can be used to transmit CW in the amateur bands? Yep. Because again, like me, I'm not ashamed to say I still rely on my computer. The key stuff, it's really tough, and there's a lot of guys out there that can pound that key into the floor, you know, and they are really, really good at it, but I'm just not. Which of the following is an example of digital communication method? All of the above. Which of the following can be connected between the transceiver computer in a packet radio station? Yep. How is the computer sound card used for conducting digital communication using a computer? B, what? Got B's and C's. That is a very important box. It's tiny, it's relatively inexpensive out of all the other gear that you're going to have, but it's kind of the most important if you want to put all of this stuff together. So,
If you guys go on and upgrade to general, think TNC signaling, rig blaster.
yep.
Those are TNCs. I have a rig blaster at the house. Rich has one. I'm sure Dave has one.
At least.
Pretty much, unless you're going to hold your microphone up to your computer speakers, you're going to need one.
And I've seen some people that I kind of have to poke fun at. If you don't have that tiny, the box is only about this big, about that tall, maybe about that wide. Without that box, life is hold your cell phone up or your microphone up to the thing so that it goes into your microphone to digitize it, and then you have to put it back to transmit the signal. That's a lot of stuff. I'm Polish. It's too complicated for me because I get...
I did that for 6 months.
I know you did. Some people I got to poke fun at. Which of the following may be included in packet transmission? We've got B, D. Remember, it's got all the error correction built in now. It contains the header, the call sign, like in my case, the frequency, and other information that I applied to it. What is AR communication system? It's okay. See? I'm telling you, these guys are passing tomorrow. These guys are passing. What may occur if data signals propagate over multiple paths? Kind of like the more hops it takes. D? I'm getting tangled in my own cords. Doors are falling down. D. The more times that signal has to bounce, the more chances there are. The part of APRS is we only do 3 hops. It takes the best out of 3. It does the work for us. As long as it's programmed right, you won't have any problems. And it's not hard to program either. Which of the following is an application of APRS, Automatic Packet Reporting System?
To make that question easier for the test, just think of APRS as GPS.
Yep. The only thing is when you look at a map on APRS versus GPS, GPS is really nice. It shows you going around a corner and pretty trees and lakes and all that. APRS goes between your basically your cookies. You're sending a packet out. So as you open the map and you call up, say, your call sign, hover your mouse over it, between this and this point, that's as far as you traveled. So it might look like you drove through a lake. It's not pretty by any means, but it's exactly what you did. I don't know where I went with this, but yeah.
That's all dependent on your transmission time too.
Yeah.
You got a short transmission time, you can get it to follow the road pretty darn accurate.
Yep. And it's dead reckoning on APRS versus GPS. You got the 500 meter, hey, you're here kind of thing. If you're sending APRS, that is exactly where you are. It's kind of, there's no privacy there. None whatsoever. What does the term APRS mean? Which of the following provides data to the transmitter when sending automatic position reports from a mobile amateur radio station? Yep, D. What does the abbreviation PSK stand for? What is PSK 31? It's a low rate. Remember the slow scan TV, that compressing digital television. What's the name given to an amateur radio station that is used to connect other amateur stations to the internet? Right, because a repeater does what Greylock does. A digipeater collects the signals and repeats those signals. And a beacon is what we send. What is the Internet Radio Linking Project, IRLP? It sounded like we were all Australian. A. Okay, enough with you. How is access to the IRLP node accomplished?
B.
Everybody agree? By touching those DTMF signals. What is it meant by Voice over Internet Protocol, VoIP, and is used in amateur radio? Say B. VoIP is Voice over Internet Protocol. How do you obtain an active list of nodes that use VoIP? A repeater directory. How do you select a specific IRLP node when you're using a portable transceiver? What type of transmission is indicated by the term NTSC? There's your TV. What's the typical bandwidth of an analog fast scan TV? Okay, guys. That's it. I think we just test them now and we go home. All right, so. For convenience, compactness, and economy, most modern amateur radio transceivers equipment comes in the form of a transceiver, which combines both transmitting and receiving functions in one package. However, many experienced radio amateurs prefer the performance and versatility of separate transmitters and receivers, also known as separates or twins. They were vastly defined functions, and transmitting and receiving can only be thoroughly optimized. Many manufacturers during the golden age of ham radio built only transmitters or receivers, and the typical ham was compelled to put together his station from a variety of specialized sources or build his own. That's a nice looking Kenwood. Your technician class license, huh? That was a nice Kenwood base station. Nice radio.
That is what you're going to dream of.
Yeah. Most of us sit there and drool on, and that's about it.
As soon as you get your license, you'll be looking over, drooling, and saying, I want that, I want that, I want that.
And if you sign up for the ARRL magazine or electronic version, you'll go through that catalog and just go, yeah, I want one of those, want one of those, want one of those, want one of those.
Your bank account says you're
Yeah.
not getting eat for 2 years if you get it.
Yep. Or you're out in the doghouse because the wife kicked you out.
That's why you want to buy these.
Your technician class license puts you in the mainstream of exciting 2-meter 440 operation. You can bounce signals off the moon, you can talk to stations 100 miles away off of meteor trails. This excitement is available to you as a technician operator, but you need more than just a simple FM transceiver. Look for the multi-mode VHF transceiver to get you started on the 2-meter band using CW upper sideband for weak signal work. There is also a satellite weak signal window between 145/800 and 146 megahertz. It takes a multi-mode radio on CW and SSB to work the weak signals. Most of us start out with one of these. They're great radios. Bofang, the cheapest one I found as of today is about 35 bucks. This is a tri-bander. It covers 2-meter 440, 2-meter 440 and 220. I think it was 60 bucks. So it's not bad to get started. Start talking to folks. Get your comfort level and decide which way you guys want to go. Kind of a diagram I can barely read. FM, as we covered, as you I think covered before, FM is a frequency modulation, and that's what most VHF UHF stands for in the handheld radio use. In FM, the frequency of the carrier wave is changed by the information signal. To learn more about how radios work, I suggest Basic Communication Electronics by Jack Hudson, W9MU, and Jerry, I'll slaughter his last name, KB5TZY. And it gives you a phone number there if you want to copy that down. But it shows you the different the carrier frequencies and how they look. Unlike the common FM mode that you will be using with your dual band handheld, single sideband requires special, not too expensive equipment. And 6 meter single sideband radios are even more, you can find them at swap meets. Christ, I think there's a couple of guys here with the club that are selling some. 6 meter single sideband are ideal for bouncing off the ionosphere. And as you will hear on the enclosed audio CD that we do not have, it is pretty exciting. We use frequency modulation through FM repeaters on many popular UHF, VHF ham bands.
heard sideband earlier when you were out with Bill.
Yeah. It is a lot of fun. I mean, to sit there and take something you can barely hear and then actually make it hearing. I think Cody or Kyle, one of them came in one day when I was trying to do it and says, why are you listening to R2D2? That's because that's all I can get right now. You know, I'm trying to tune this guy in. But near the bottom of 6 meters, 2 meters, 1¼ meters, and at the 432 and 1296 megahertz, we use single sideband, which uses less bandwidth than the FM.
1296 megs, you're playing up at microwave frequencies. Your technician license, you can go all the way up to 35 gigs, 40 gigs. You go all the way up there on microwave.
A form of amplitude modulation is called single sideband. With the single sideband, the amplitude of the radio waves rises. With the spoken word, up to a limit of around 2.8 kilohertz. Some hams employ double sideband so that the radio waves both rise and dip, occupying almost twice as much bandwidth as single sideband. Single sideband is the type of modulation we use for weak signal. VHF and UHF work on technician class frequencies. On VHF, UHF, we always use upper sideband. Always use upper sideband as our communication mode. Single mode. Today, really?
Yep.
She said we were all right, right? We're in a shelter?
Yep.
All right, guys. So I guess we're going to stay going. Single sideband is most advanced feature after you have been on the air for a few months as a technician and class operator. You won't find single sideband. Oh man, you won't find single sideband capability in the ham handheld. You will find single sideband in all of your worldwide high frequency radio sets. This equipment may also give you 6 meters, 2 meters, 70 centimeters, in addition to the worldwide HF capabilities. We don't use single sideband through repeaters. Single sideband is found on the bottom of the most UHF, VHF ham bands. So you will want to try to follow the frequencies, your band plan that I believe John showed you on. They're in most literature, they're online and all that kind of stuff. So 10 meters is 28,400, 6 is 50.125, 2 meters is 144.2, and 70 centimeters is 432.1. No FM is allowed on weak signal sideband frequencies. Worldwide equipment, which includes all of these bands plus HF, costs less than about $1,000. And the prices are getting better because the technology, they got a radio out. I don't know the price of it yet, but it's an all digital, all mode. It's just a phenomenal radio. So that's probably around 15, 18, 2,500. Modulation is the process of applying information, voice, video, or digital, into a radio signal. The information modifies some characteristics of the radio frequency carrier so that the information may be transmitted through the air. Inside the brand new dual band handheld is a circuit called the modulator. It is converted into your spoken word going into the microphone into an electrical speech signal that combined with the RF carrier. The modulator is always on the transmit side of your equipment, tied to the microphone. So the modulator is the process of applying information, voice, video, or digital, onto your radio signal. A properly adjusted single sideband transmitter of UHF-VHF frequencies for technicians occupies approximately 2 to 3 kilohertz of bandwidth, depending on your voice characteristics. We employ upper sideband for the VHF and UHF weak signal work. For single sideband, the normal voice bandwidth is about 2,500 hertz on the 2,400 hertz bandwidth. Selection would be the appropriate filter. This usually happens automatically, so you don't need to do a thing to enjoy your weak signal work. As a new technician, you will want to explore all that's available to you. And weak signal sideband, or CW, operation is permitted, and again, it's on your test, permitted in at least some portions of all of the amateur bands above 500 megahertz. Multi-mode VHF transceivers are now plentiful and inexpensive. If you plan to do some weak signal work, great. We need more weak signal operators using CW Morse code and single sideband. It will take a little practice to tune your voice properly on the single sideband. You should set your receiver's RIT or clarifier. I know that's a big one, and I think I bombed that one on my test. To the neutral position, and then do your adjustments slightly, turning the big tuning knob for proper single sideband voice operation. You can make any fine-tune adjustments with the RIT or the clarifier. The RIT or RIT control is only found on high-end weak signal mobile or base station equipment capable of single sideband. The receiver incremental tuning control, RIT, also allows you to fine-tune the receiver slightly up or down about 1 kilohertz without changing your transmit frequency, which is useful for working satellite Doppler shift. For non-satellite work, leave the RIT disabled so you are always transmitting and receiving on the same frequency. I know guys that have been doing it for many, many years, and they come out of doing whatever it is they're doing on sideband, try to talk on just a local repeater like Mount Greylock, and they're all off kilter because they forgot to shut their RIT off or some such thing. So if you're doing that work, just remember when you come back to just straight 2 meters to make sure everything is shut back off and turned back down. When we speak into a microphone, sound pressure waves strike the element, which converts the acoustic energy into electrical waves. The electrical waves then are sent along the transmitter that will ultimately transmit the electromagnetic radio waves into the airwaves. Microphone jacks and power connections on the handheld, as well as the mobile equipment, may look similar between different manufacturers, but they are not. Some mobile radio microphone jacks output a small DC voltage to the power, the microphone. Each manufacturer assigns this voltage to a specific pin, and if you accidentally plug in the wrong microphone, you could short the voltage to the ground, zapping your radio instantly. It is expensive to fix. Don't hot swipe mics. If you're good at soldering, look at your diagrams. I can't. I'm colorblind #1. Dave is the one that helps me solder stuff. All radios originate with an oscillator of some sort, somewhere in the circuitry. An oscillator is essentially an amplifier with positive feedback. Some frequency determining components most frequently are resonant or a tuned circuit. Oscillators come with a countless varieties, using everything from vibrating quartz crystals to wobbling atoms as the resonant circuit. Some of these more classic oscillator circuits used in amateur radios are Colpitts, the Hartley, and the Clap oscillator. Various multi-vibrator circuits are also function as a small oscillator-like fashion in many digital circuits. The FCC may soon rule on the switch from restrictive type of communications over the more reasonable bandwidth limitations for amateur communications. FM voices and slow scan TV are modest bandwidth. single sideband voice has a skinny bandwidth, and the ultra narrowest bandwidth of all, and all these answers, is CW, or Morse code. Even through the code, test for CW has been eliminated for all the classes of ham licenses. CW will always be popular, ultra narrow way of communicating. I hope all of you will try some CW down the worldwide portion of your technician class privileges on 80, 40, 15, and 10. When you switch your multi-mode rig over to CW, you will want to see that the bandwidth narrows down. This minimizes the pickup of other CW frequencies or off frequencies at 150 hertz. It's just right. So when you go into your computer and your software, once you get comfortable doing it, the computer really does about, I'd say, 85% of your work. You don't have to worry, and the radio, depending on the radio you get, you can, like my Icon, you can preset where you want to be on that band. For Morse code CW, we restrict the bandwidth down to a skinny 400 hertz. Anything wider would bring in a lot of noise. Again, when you switch your worldwide radio to CW, the narrower 500 hertz bandwidth filter automatically clicks in. On 6 and 10 meters, single sideband and CW, the worldwide radio offers bandwidth choices. When you change modes on your radio, it will automatically tighten up or expand the internal bandwidth filter selection. This allows you to maximize the noise and minimize the noise and maximize the long-range reception. But that's going to be important. When you click it in, it's going to automatically tighten it up or expand it. The ability of a receiver to detect a weak signal is known as sensitivity. For effective HF radio communications, an operator must receive, the receiver must have a power gain of approximately 1 million or 10 million to 1, or about 70 decibels as measured at the antenna terminals. To bring in the medium strength HF signal to a comfortable listening level with a set of earphones. As daunting as this task may seem, this sort of sensitivity is extremely easy to achieve with the modern electronic components. The mixer. It is a nonlinear device that makes two signals injected into and creates both the sums and the differences of any two radio signals. A simple diode can act as a mixer, but most modern-day radios use more elegant arrangements using several diodes and active devices such as transistors, FETs or FETs, to create a mixer circuit board. Mixers are essentially to nearly every modern radio design and are crucial to the overall performance of the radio in most cases. The capability of a radio, of any radio equipment, is to specifically hear one frequency and discriminate against signals on the other side of that frequency. It's called selectivity. On VHF, UHF equipment, the selectivity is usually preset, and most equipment is plenty sensitive. On the worldwide radio gear, you can sometimes add more filters for increased sensitivity, while additional filters may cut down on the fidelity of the received signal so you can tighten up the receiver's response. AGC, automatic gain control, formerly known as the AVC, or automatic volume control. This is used to somewhat level out the huge variation in signal strength a signal can undergo between the distant station on its way to you. The AGC bus is also used in most radios to drive the S meter. AGC system can range from rudimentary to extremely sophisticated, with varieties of attack time, decay time, hang time, and other parameters, all for the purpose of making HF reception more effective and over a widely varying conditions. Don't go out and buy one. Your radio equipment already has an excellent built-in preamplifier. I would have to agree, most radios I've either used, borrowed, or seen, they really do. Only if you purchase a very old radio with a noticeably weak reception would you consider an external amplifier? The preamp goes in between the antenna input and the receiver. Be careful how you wire it. It is simply put into the outside of the equipment, and the first time you transmit, the preamp is history. It either needs to be external switching or must be placed inside of the equipment between the antenna line and the receiver section. Many folks become ham radio operators from their experience on the CB. Some of their 27 megahertz equipment may be modified and tied into an actual device called transverters that make 11-meter signal now coming in at 222. To reverse this process, you will also need to be receiving converter or down converter, which takes the 220 megahertz received signal and down converts it to a 27 or 28 receiver front end frequency. Why you would do that, I don't know. I came from the CB. I got stuff. I didn't want to mess with it. It's anymore today. Things are disposable. You drop one of these, you can't get inside it to fix it anyway. So I mean, if I do drop it and destroy it, I've destroyed it, you know. So just buying a new 2-meter would suffice. But people like tinkering, so there's nothing wrong with that. While there are transverters which will perform both functions in a simple package, you can assume that all transverters work on the receive side. Never try to run your 12-volt equipment directly from a battery charger or attempt to transmit with your handheld when it's plugged into the wall adapter. If you plan to run your equipment off at commercial power with it still plugged in, and always use a regulated power supply, which is what my kit will run off of, either a power supply or I have a huge battery to make it totally portable. So if I have juice, I use the power supply. If not, I'm running the battery. Regulated power supply, and it protects your gear from voltage fluctuations. A regulated power supply plugs into the AC wall outlet, and then your radio plugs into the power supply. The greatest cause of handheld transmit hum and sometimes damage to the equipment is trying to transmit with a still plugged into the AC receptacle power adapter. So basically, it goes to your wall, your equipment, just like your car battery gets plugged in, hot and ground. So, you guys are going to ace this one too. What is a transceiver? Which of the following devices is most useful for VHF, weak signal communication? B. What type of voice mode is often used for long-distance weak signal contacts and VHF and UHF bands? What is the preliminary advantage of single sideband over FM for voice transmissions? See? Which of the following is a form of amplitude modulation? Which sideband is normally used for 10-meter VHF, UHF, and HF single sideband communication? Which of the following describes the combining of speech with an RF carrier signal? Oscillation? Modulation. Yep. What is the approximate bandwidth of a single sideband voice signal?
6 kilohertz.
3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Half. Well, geez, you guys only nailed like 99%, so. Which of the following is an appropriate receive filter bandwidth? Gonna skip you right there, huh? Which of the following is true of the use of SSB phone in amateur band above 50? Got an A, and I got a C. Some portion. Some portion. Remember, you got 3 tiers of license. You got your technician, general. So technician is kind of like this. General kind of opens up to that, and then the extra is about that much more, and then you get everything. Which of the following controls would you be used to pitch of a single sideband signal? Seems to be high or low. D. Of course. RIT. What does the term RIT mean? You got an A, you got a B. B's got it. Which of the following is true concerning the microphone connector on an amateur transceiver?
B.
Remember that about 2 slides back, it says not all Motorola, Yaesu, Bofang, not everybody does the same. I wish they would. Make life a lot easier. But, you know, neither does Ford, Chevy, or Dodge, or nobody else. So, what's the name of a circuit that generates a signal on... Yeah, okay. Might as well not even finish these. Which of the following types of emissions has the narrowest bandwidth? What is the approximate maximum bandwidth required to transmit a CW signal? Which of the following is appropriate receive filter bandwidth to select in order to minimize noise and interference for a CW reception? What is the advantage of having multiple receive bandwidth choices on a multimode transceiver? Got an A? C? Yeah, matching the mode. So, permits the noise or interference reduction by selecting a bandwidth matching mode. Which term describes the ability to receive or detect the presence of a signal? Sensitivity. Which is the following used to convert a radio signal from one frequency to another? B. Which term describes the ability of a receiver to discriminate between multiple signals? So one is selectiveness. What is the function of an automatic gain control, or AGC? There's always 2 questions that don't make sense. I don't think I spoke of anything about lightning, so we can remove that one.
What is to keep perceived audio relatively constant?
Automatic gain control. Is it to keep the audio constant?
That's what I'm thinking.
Protect the from lightning or some such thing? To eliminate the RF on a station cabling?
What is AL?
Is that your final answer? What is an RF preamplifier installed? Where is it installed? What device takes the output of a low-powered 28 megahertz single sideband exciter?
What is transfer?
Which is a good reason to use a regulated power supply for communications equipment? That was awesome. I saw some long faces because, you know, we got a few wrong. But if I'm no statistician, but you guys killed everything today so far. So if all you miss is 2 questions,
Okay, at this
Perfect.
point, we are way ahead of where we had planned to be.
Crap, did I talk too fast?
Way ahead. So, I think we'll break for here for today. And we've only got 4 more sections.
I guess we're on to football. Run some interference protection. This particular question is about poor signal reports from your radio through the repeater and has a correct answer showing all of the conditions that might lead to the bad reception. Likely a bad location in one of those, not spots, could lead to the distorted or weak signal. So try moving to a slightly different location where the signal strength of the repeater shows greater on your handheld LCD graph, and that you should probably go to a better spot which you can transmit through the repeater. Anybody familiar with old fire department Motorola pagers? Everybody did the Motorola shuffler? When the tones went out, you had to kind of go, yeah. Move to a better location. Chances are your TV, your routers throw a lot of, as Cody found out this morning, in a close proximity, depending on how high you have the power on your router, it could throw off specifically 910's repeater in my house. I have tin ceilings, copper ceilings, and a router. So signals are absolutely horrible in our house. So just by changing a room, if you walk outside, everything will clear up for you. Some base station radios for weak signal VHF and UHF operation have a microphone gain control. Set the gain control to about half scale. Turning the control up wide open will set the mic gain too high and cause the signal, the transmitted signal to become distorted. Most HTs have mic gains on them. Start off, I would start, because I have a rather deeper voice, I start off at about 3 and work my way up from there. So some people that don't generally tend to use it, you'll see them screaming into their cell phones, those folks, or their radios, thinking that the louder they scream, but the louder you try to talk into your mic, the worse it's going to be anyway. So use the mic gain when you can. If your set is over deviating, it means that you have too much modulation is being driven into your signal beyond the normal bandwidth. If you talk farther from the mic, you will minimize and eliminate some of your deviation. So particularly Allie and I work in a spot where the lady that's running the show at night, instead of having the mic at a comfortable distance, she likes to scream loudly into the mic and you can't understand a word Chrissy says. Having your mic set too high I didn't do this one. Having your microphone gain set too high will cause excessive deviation and is the primary cause of FM transmitters using up too much of the spectrum space. While most of the modern handhelds and portable rigs have deviation limiters, these can get out of adjustment from time to time, obviously from cleaning and whatever. If someone tells you that you have an over-deviating, if you're over-deviating, simply back off from the microphone an inch or two, which will reduce the modulation until you can get your radio fixed or adjusted the way you need to. On a multi-mode weak signal radio, when you receive a weak signal, sideband signal, turn on the noise blanker to minimize the ignition noise. So that, I imagine they're going to ask that one. There is no noise blanker function on a common FM handheld or mobile radio, just on the bigger high-frequency multi-mode transmitter. So these we really don't have to worry about too much. It's when you start getting in the one, what was it, Doug, yesterday? Showed you in the car, in his trunk?
Phil.
Phil. That's when your major adjustments are going to start coming into play. You have a brand new mobile radio installed in your brand new car. You rewarded yourself for passing the test today. But each time you go, you goose the accelerator, you hear a high-pitched noise coming from your mobile radio speaker. The most common, it's most commonly called alternator whine, and it can be minimized by a DC filter choke and alternator filters. They're really easy, and I don't have one with me. Kind of looks like this. If I unplug it, we'll be good, briefly. Everybody's seen one of these either on our cell phones or some sort of gadget that we got, iPads, tablets, or something like that. Yeah. So it's a simple fix. It used to be we could go to Radio Shack and pick up a quick choke filter. You kind of wrap your cable up and around and then just snap it shut. But apparently we're losing Radio Shack. So this is a common problem in handhelds plugged into a 12-volt accessory socket in your automobile. If your automobile has a hefty alternator charging system without filters on it, on the leads, the AC from the alternator will put a high-pitched whine into your transmit and receive signal. If you hear a signal noise that changes when you accelerate, come back down in pitch. As you let off the gas, plan to buy some DC noise filters, and put them in both electrical systems, as well as your handheld 12-volt DC input cord. Most cars' adapter plugs for handhelds have a built-in noise choke to minimize that common problem. I can't remember when it started, but probably in the last 5 years that's kind of taken care of itself. But most of the cords, if you buy the accessories, I'd say about 80% of them already come with some sort of a choke on it. So, you know, when you buy one from eBay, just see if there's something weird on a cord. That's probably your filter. RF radio frequency. That's RF. Current flow on the outside of a microphone cable and other conductors as well is generally a common mode sort, which normally most effective cured by the use of a ferrite beads or cores surrounding the conductor, thus choking off the RF current. Sometimes reducing the RF problem is a bit of an art form, but always start with the standard fixes first. If you plan to go digital with your new tech class privileges, load up on a handful of ferrite chokes. Again, they're really cheap and pretty easy to put on. It's one of the easiest things anybody can do. These are clamshell iron devices that simply snap over the wiring coming from your handheld to your mobile radio or your computer. The ferrite choke will minimize the RF currents flowing on the shield and the audio cable. You want everything inside, not outside. My particular antenna, or whatever antennas you so choose to choose, have, like mine came, it looks like a PVC pipe. It's just a weird looking thing. And you would plug your antenna from the antenna into this, and then from the bottom of that into your base station. And that giant thing on an exterior antenna is an RF choke. In any interference case, you want to be sure that you have a clean house to start with. Assuming that you're transmitting a clean signal, the situation indicates cable leakage, which can result from any one of possibly a dozen of improperly installed cable connectors in a cable TV installation. I have a tendency, if I have a problem, to rip it all apart. Sometimes it's a matter of if you're moving your base station just a little bit in different directions because you've got your computer screens or whatever in the way, and you just need that little bit more space. Sometimes just the movement back, forth, left, or right will loosen up your connectors in the back. So when you have a problem, I tend not to start with the simple, stupid stuff. Just tighten that connector, check the connectors first. Yeah, Italian-German crap. Now that the television signals are digital and a majority are now transmitted over the air on UHF frequencies, ham radio television interference, TVI, is a rarity. Your worldwide radio already comes with low-pass filters installed to remove harmonics. On the UHF and VHF bands, no filter should ever be added to your antenna system. But to answer the question correctly, if you decide to add a low-pass filter to the antenna connector of it goes in between the transmitter and the antenna. That was on my test. It goes in between the transmitter and the antenna. Gone are the days, if anybody had DSL. If you had DSL, you knew about the stupid filters you had to add to your phone line to kill that stuff. You are outside sitting on your deck, chair listening to your local repeater when all of a sudden your handheld picks up nothing but hash. Your buddy across the street, also a ham, is transmitting with his mobile radio and amplifier that he bought off of a swap meet net and was advertised as may need some tweaking. That nearby transmitter is probably overloading your receiver with harmonics and sparse emissions. And all this leads to the radio frequency interference. But don't buy questionable used gear. Marconi himself probably couldn't fix. It's buy at your own risk. If people tweak their amplifiers, move things around, I'm not good at wiring. I'm colorblind. Can't solder much. I can't really do a lot of things. Colorblind on top of it all. So to get into an amplifier and see the black diode or cathode with the gray stripe and the gray resistor with the black stripe, I'm out of the game. So I tend to just, if you're going to buy one, it would probably behoove you to start off in the beginning if you're going to have an amp or something like that to buy a new one, you know, instead of buying one for half the price and then wind up having issues. But swap meets are fun. We've got a lot of good stuff out there. You're on the 6 meters for the first time, and the signal strength tests with hams a few miles away indicate that you're having a strong signal, but your modulation, the voice, is slightly garbled. This is most likely because of RF feedback between your antenna system and the microphone. You have the antenna temporarily set up on a tripod just a few feet away from an operating station. Get some longer coax. Move the antenna about 15 feet away from your operating station. And likely your friends will be able to tell you that your distortion is cleared up, no more RF feedback. Most antennas recommend a certain footage of coax. I think the lowest one I had recommended 50 feet. So if you cut that in half, you're going to start having issues. So even if you have to make a ghost choke or something like that, and that's just merely taking a cable and taking a coffee can and winding it around that, that'll help clear that up if you have to shorten it. But if it recommends 50 feet, I would probably stick with the 50 feet. All electrical conductors are capable of both radiating and receiving radio frequency energy. This is a great in the case of an antenna that is not so great in the most popular applications. When you don't want a conductor to radiate or receive radio signals or other interference, the use of shielding is also an effective solution. The most familiar shielding wire is a coax cable. It is unlikely that UHF and VH signals will cause television interference to your neighbors on the outside antenna or the dish or cables. However, if you go out into the worldwide bands using the Morse code privileges, be aware that these frequencies could sneak into a television set and cause problems. First, double check that your equipment is well grounded and operating properly. And double check that your TV is working okay when you're transmitting over the air. If it is, chances are your neighbors may have some loose connections on their TV receivers. And this would cure it up by a sweep towards reducing the interference from your station when transmitting on high frequency. I don't know if it's in this, but maybe Dave. If your neighbors complain that you're interfering with their TV, what do we do?
That's basically what it said right there. Check your equipment first. Find out if they're receiving over there or cable.
And if they become bad neighbors and start telling you, you have to break down your station, do we have to break down our station?
No.
As long as we know that it's running properly, everything is connected, and we're within your licensing class. If you're running 3,000 watts of power and you spin your beam into his antenna, yeah, you might have a problem. But as long as we're operating properly, the neighbors can complain all they want, and you really don't have to dismantle your entire station because he gets a little flutter or here's a little CW. Interferences between amateur radio service has always been potential problems. In regards, it's not as severe as it once was. A broadcast TV signal changed from analog to digital. The disappearance of Channel 2 TV, for instance, has made a full power 6-meter amateur radio a joy in recent years, where in the past it was almost certain to cause interference by nearby analog TVs on that channel. In any case, it behooves any amateur to understand some of the rudiments of preventing and curing various forms of RF interference as they might crop up. Often, however, the problem is design effects of the consumer electronic device. A small degree of wisdom or a lot of experience is often necessary to resolve the issues. Each case is a special case. You may not experience what I do, and I may not experience what you do. Again, you may have a normal house. We got a house covered in copper and tin. So a lot of interference. Everybody's different. You may purchase a snap-on ferrite choke that acts as an RF filter on your telephone equipment, just like the old DSL stuff. Snap these filters over the telephone cord, the telephone's curly cord, and actually in becoming the incoming line from the phone to your handset. The more snap-on filters you add, the less likely your little handheld or base station will cause interference. Again, that's not really, I've never had it, so I'm not saying other people have, since DSL is pretty much gone. The best way to correct radio frequency interference from your ham radio to your mother-in-law's hi-fi and ancient analog TV is to use a snap-on ferrite choke and rely on your own equipment's bandpass filters to keep the transmit signal clean. Hopefully that old TV set has its own high-pass filter built on. For the worldwide ham bands, newer ham rigs have low-pass filters built right in, and in rare cases you could actually build a short stub band reject filter for that old TV set. For the exam, all these choices are correct. So a snap-on ferrite choke, high-pass band, low-pass filters, short stub band reject filters for the old school TVs. All right, so all those answers are correct. But in the real world of ham radio, the very best way of eliminating your lovely voice from coming over your mom-in-law's hair dryer and toaster would be to snap on a ferrite choke, especially useful in computer leads, telephone modems, hi-fi connections, and incoming telephone lines. This stuff generates a lot of interference. So if you have your monitor sitting here, your PC's on the tower here, you got all your USB connections, your ports, your hubs, and all that stuff, it's generating a lot of interference for your radio. So chances are it's not the radio that's causing it, it's all the other stuff. His brother has his radio too close to his computer, and he has to take it and move it, what, about half a foot on his desk, and it clears up all the radio problems. So.
Hey, Rich, my mother-in-law lives that close, and I'm interfering with her radio, it's not going to be cool.
That's why I'm laughing. No mother-in-law does. So there's your high cut, low cuts, and how the filters work, and that bypass filter in between your receiver and antenna. Unfortunately, a lot of consumer equipment is designed and built as if they were the only occupants of the radio spectrum. No matter how pristine and clean your amateur radio signal is, some type of interference, such as front-end overload, can be fixed. Can only be fixed at the consumer equipment. This is just one such case. Consult the ARRL handbook and other reputable references for detailed information on how to apply filters to consumer gear for the solution. Plus, if you are on air, pretty much I would have to say, Dave, Pete, we will try to help as much as possible. Any ham it's amazing how the ham community comes together. Hey, I broke my antenna. Here, I got one in the trunk. Take it for now until you get it fixed, you know. Part 15 devices are unlicensed devices that use low power radio signals. Is your phone Part 15? I'm not sure about all the brands, but you know, unlicensed devices that use low power radio signals. They are prohibited from causing interference to other licensed devices, such as amateur radio, and must accept any interference from duly licensed transmitters, amateur or otherwise. Unfortunately, interference from the Part 15 devices to amateur radio is relatively rare, but you need to know that they're out there. A wireless anything is likely to be rated as a Part 15 device, and this means that the potential of ham radio interference. As more wireless Part 15 devices switch from analog to digital, or ham transmitters probably won't disturb them anymore. And there's what I asked the question about to Dave. Work with your neighbors to identify the offending device. Politely inform the neighbor about the rules that prohibit the use of devices which cause interference, because it's never theirs. It's always you, because you're pushing power out of an antenna. So it's always us that are causing the problems. Check with your station to make sure that it meets the standards of good amateur practice. And all of these choices are correct. Do what we can to keep our stuff clean and running, and set. So, question time. I already know the answer to this. You're all going to get them right. Because that's all I hear through the mic. Yep. I hear everybody's getting it. What might be the problem if you receive a report that your radio signal through the repeater is distorted or unintelligible?
See.
All of these. Your battery is important. If it doesn't have whatever it is, 7.4 volts, as it starts to drain, you could be in a bad location, move a couple of feet, and we don't have to worry about much being off frequency on these guys, because it kind of is what it is, you know. What may happen if your transmitter is operated with a microphone gain set too high? See? What do you do if you're told that your FM handheld or mobile transceiver is over-deviating? Oh, you don't scream into it? What could cause your FM signal to interfere with stations on nearby frequencies? Got it? SWR, it's kind of, especially on these, it kind of is where it is. CTCSS tone, this means if you key up, you're not going to hit the repeater if you don't have that right. And so it would be, your gain is too high. Which of the following would you reduce ignition interference to your receiver? Turn on the noise blanker, or any other types of filters that you have on board. What is the source of a high-pitched whine that varies with the engine speed in a mobile transceiver's radio? The alternator whine. What could happen if another operator reports a variable high-pitched whine on the audio from your mobile transmitter? That's right. Again, back to that alternator. Which one of the following could you use to cure distorted audio caused by RF current flowing on the shield of a microphone cable? I got a B and a D.
D.
Was that? Yes, I did.
We'll go with A.
First time ever I saw all of you with a different one. It's a ferrite choke. The little snap-on jobs. What might be the first step to resolve a cable TV interference from your ham radio transmission? See? Always check the dumb stuff first. Because I don't know how they make those cable TV boxes when you got to screw that little F connector in there. Those fingers just don't work. That's why they have a special tool that they use. Where must a filter be installed to reduce harmonic emissions from your station? Which of the following may be cause of radio frequency interference? Well, that was that easy, huh? What is the symptom of RF feedback in a transmitter or transceiver? See? Which of the following is a common reason to use shielded wire? Which of the following actions should you take if your neighbor tells you that your station's transmission are interfering with the radio or TV reception, and it does not include punching them in the throat? What would cause a broadcast AM or FM radio to receive an amateur radio transmission unintentionally? The receiver is unable to reject the strong signals outside the AM or FM band. Which of the following is a way to reduce or eliminate interference by an amateur transmitter to a nearby telephone? RF is killer. Absolutely killer to us. Which of the following may be useful in correcting the radio frequency interference problem? What was it? You got the snap-ons, you got the low and high pass, and the band reject for the mom-in-law's house. How can you overload? How can an overload of non-amateur radio equipment receiver by an amateur signal be reduced and or eliminated? A. Filters, filters, filters. What is a Part 15 device? What should you do if something in your neighborhood, in your neighbor's home is causing harmful interference to your amateur radio station? And that's it. Picture this. Is it me again?
You again.
Yay. Picture that. As a new tech operator, you will be familiar with the identification of simple schematic diagram illustrations. In the next few questions, we'll take a look at some of those schematics with symbols that you should know. We will home in on identifying individual symbols in schematic diagrams for your exam. Don't panic, it's easy. Ha ha. Now let's check ourselves. The symbols on the electrical circuit schematic diagram represent electrical components. So in red, schematics represent symbols represent the electrical components.
Before Rich gets started, some of these will actually be on the test this afternoon.
Unfortunately. Not many. At least I didn't have that many. Schematic diagrams allow us to see exactly how the components are interconnected, right down to each and every lead. I hope you can see that. Okay. The schematic diagram allows you to see exactly how the components are interconnected. Another figure, component number 3, doesn't have a squiggly line like a resistor, but rather a coil type line. So this is a variable conductor. So the squiggly line is a variable conductor. It's a variable because we see tap points on the hump lines and a line with the arrow indicating the inductor that can be adjusted to any tap. Welcome. Again. Component number 4 looks like it, an antenna. That antenna tuned by someone of the preceding circuit components. We use series and parallel coils and capacitors to develop a tuned circuit inside the new radio. Another name for a coil is an inductor, and it's what we use, it's used with a capacitor so that you have a tuned circuit. And there is a bunch of your signals. Yeah, that's a lot, but it's okay. I know everybody looks at it and goes, oh crap. Squiggly lines, hump lines. A resonant circuit must contain at least one inductor and one capacitor. So on question number T6D11, a resonant circuit, inductor, capacitor, the keywords. The resonant frequency of the tuned circuit is a frequency at which the inductive reactance and the capacitance reactants are equal. It is one of the most crucial circuits in the radio. Resonant circuits of one form or another determine the frequency of operation on all radio devices. Here we go, a bunch of squigglies, antennas, and forks. This figure will be found on your actual technical and technician class exam sheet. Either with the question or with the last page of your examination materials, component number 1, that squiggly line, is a resistor. Can you imagine current flowing through all the squigglies offering resistance. Component 2 is our friendly transistor. The arrow is not pointing in, so it is an NPN transistor. I think Dave showed that a good diagram of an NPN earlier. Component number 2 is an NPN transistor, and this one controls the flow of current. So the NPN transistor controls the flow of current much like a value. Component 3. This looks like what it is, a small inductor lamp. Looks like a lamp, doesn't it? Looks like an LED. It takes voltage to make this circuit work, and we get the voltage from the battery, which is component number 4. Component. Do what? Oh, okay. Big finger, sorry. Your handheld may have one of these, a single pole, single throw switch. It is single on both sides, both senses, because you see only one wiring going to the switch and only one single contact point. Single pole, single throw. Component number 4 takes in everything around it, and it is usually a transformer. I'm sure everybody's seen one of these in old radios or stuff that we've broke. Voltage is passed from one winding on the left side to windings on the right, with 2 vertical lines representing an iron core. This transformer looks to have about the same number of turns on the primary or secondary. So the amount of voltage going in will be the same as the amount of voltage coming out the other side. Same in, same out. Okay. You guys are great. Let's turn it into a master engineer. Took figure T2, component 6, has 2 parallels, sort of. The plates are separated by insulation, so it must be a capacitor. And a capacitor does what? Okay. See the little arrow symbol on the component number 8 showing the effects of light? Component 8 is a light emitting diode, LED. Component 9 is indeed a resistor, but it has a variable trap point on it, so it is a variable resistor. We'll formally call it a potentiometer, and it could be a volume control on your handheld. Your large high-frequency transceivers may have a mechanical meter movement to illustrate the incoming signal. Even if it is an LED or LCD, we still call it a signal strength meter. Most of your handhelds don't have one, but the mobile radio that puts out 50 watts will likely contain a relay. The relay that is the mechanical switch, open and closed by the current passing through a coil, creating an electromagnetic. As soon as the coil is energized, that switch goes from one state to another. If you want to turn your handheld on house power, you'll need a power supply. I think we covered that yesterday. That will provide a regulated 12 volts to your handheld input circuit. The power supply must have a good regulator built in so that it doesn't exceed the 12 volt DC input and that your handhelds work with. Never transmit from a handheld plugged into an AC wall outlet or a wall wart, because there's not enough filtering within the wall wart for a good signal. It's okay to listen, but unplug before you transmit. I wouldn't even transmit. Maybe someone out here will help me with this one. I've never transmitted with this in the cradle while it's charging either, because yeah, it's advised not to do it. I've heard of people doing it, and it's just not good. When you purchase your new dual band handheld, it will come with a wall charger that plugs contains a small transformer that takes 120 volts AC in the primary, steps down to a lower AC voltage on the secondary. Diodes and capacitors then filter this lowered AC and converts it back into 12 DC. The common wall wart contains all of the circuitry, and newer switcher wall warts have a much lighter in weight, and the transformer is extremely small in size. If you ever look inside a modern ham radio, you'll see regulator chips that are large-scale integrated circuits. This chip contains thousands of micro or semiconductors in one nice, neat package, abbreviated ICS. Doubling your power will lead to a power increase of, this was on my test, doubling your power will lead to a power increase of 3 decibels. Halving your power will lead to a 3 decibel decrease. But since we are going from 5 watts to 10 watts, we are doubling the power, and that is a 3 decibel increase. So you remember that. Now we go from 12 watts down to 3 by pushing the low power button on the small ham radio. This is 4 times decrease. It's 4 times 3 gives you 12. A 4-time decrease in power decreases by 6 decibels. And truthfully, this is where I had my issue on the test. I couldn't get that quite right. Now we add a linear amplifier. Normally I don't recommend any amplifiers as you are getting started as tech. Going from 20 watts to 200 watts is a bit dangerous. And that is a 10-time increase in power. So 20 times 10 is 200. 10 times increase, which gives you 10 decibels. LEDs stands for light emitting diode. This is green, red, and amber, that indicators that come up along your handheld when you are transmitting. The LED draws almost no amount of current and will last for hundreds of thousands of hours without burnout. This is a big improvement over older versions with gain of light bulbs. LED, light emitting diodes. They're pretty much in probably everything these days. And there's your diagram of an LED. A good visual indicator on a handheld radio is an LED, the light that emitting diode that is often used to, as a transmit, know that you're transmitting on your HTs. To keep you from running out of pencil lead, we can abbreviate 1,500,000 hertz as either a 1,500 hertz or 1.5 megahertz. From hertz to kilohertz, move the decimal 3 places to the left. From kilohertz to megahertz, move it to the left. There are 1,000 megahertz in 1 gigahertz, kind of like a computer. So we can simply divide 1,000 to get the final answer, 2.425. Remember kilo? Kilo means 1,000. 1 kilovolt equals 1,000 volts. Watch out for answer A. That was a good addition. 1 milliamp equals 1,000 of an amp. 1 times 10 minus 3. Therefore, 1 amp equals 1,000 milliamps. Divide milliamps by 1,000 to convert to amps. Or move the decimal 0.3 places to the left, and there is your keystrokes. Good? It's a good idea and fun exercise for some of us anyway, to memorize all the metric prefixes. Not me. They're used a lot in radio electronics. There are 1,000 kilohertz in 1 megahertz. So 28,400 kilohertz is equal to 28.4 megahertz. Always remember that in the future. The unit is smaller, you need more of them. Your handheld transceiver can also be dialed down to minimum power output, dramatically conserving the battery life. 500 milliwatts can be converted into watts by moving the decimal point 3 places to the left. So, at a handheld at 500 milliwatts, output is transmitting half a watt, 0.5 watts of power. The same as half watt of power. Believe it or not, you can make many contacts through your local repeaters at a half a watt of power, and your batteries will love it for you. The longer, obviously, if you're transmitting at 5 watts, you're going to run on these little guys probably about 2 or 3 days. If you're running APRS on top of it, which this radio does, you only get about 6 hours out of a nice sized battery that would normally last anything else. Your APRS will drain about 40% of your battery life throughout the day. So if you need it for 8 hours, have a backup battery on if you're going to run APRS beaconing. I think I beacon every 20 minutes on this radio, so I found out I get about 6 hours out of that battery. Your new dual band handheld might offer as much as 5 to 7 watts. They do have 8 watters out. I don't know that there's a big difference between them, but they are out. Depending on the battery pack voltage and transmitter, you can actually draw as much as 1500 milliamps. Don't panic with all those numbers. Move the decimal point 3 places. Go to milliamps to amps. In the question, to convert 1.5 amps to 1500 milliamps, move the decimal place 3 places to the right. Pictofad is 1/millionth of a microfad, or 1/millionth of a farad. Move the decimal 6 places to the left to convert microfads, or 12 places to the left to convert to farads. If you do the math, you'll find the answer is 1 microfad. They gave me the boring slides. We measure the receiver capabilities in the handheld microvolts. The word micro means 1/millionth. Mega means million. Kilo means thousand. Milli means thousandth. And micro means 1/millionth. Rosin core solder is commonly available in many places that you purchase soldering iron or a gun. A little soldering pen is fine for working with tiny circuits, but you're going to need a massive soldering iron or a big 200-watt soldering gun if you plan to install coax connectors properly. Always use rosin core solder. Wear protective glasses too. Not sure what that even means. Electronic solder, pretty much, is a special alloy of lead and tin designed to melt at the lowest possible temperature. And this is recommended if you do any kind of surface mount soldering and increasing more valuable skill. It's easy to tell if you've made a good solder connection. The solder looks shiny. However, a cold, poorly soldered joint looks grainy and dull. Every amateur operator should own a multimeter. The multiple function meter can measure voltage, current, and resistance, and check continuity. Even an inexpensive multimeter is better than having no meter, and when you're trying to check out a circuit in the field, they're very handy. You can buy excellent multimeter for less than 25 bucks. The only real difference between a $25 meter and a $300 meter, one, is not the accuracy, but how many times you can run it over with a Humvee or drop it from the top of a tower and still have it work. Most expensive electronic technicians inevitably wind up doing the above more to their meters, so they prefer to get the best meters they can afford. Anytime you're checking a circuit with an ohm meter, make sure that the circuit is not energized. If you check any circuit with voltage on, it will probably toast the ohm meter for life. You're likely to damage your brand new needle multimeter by measuring voltage. if you accidentally leave it in the ohms reading setting. If you have a big old capacitor hanging around the shack, keep it handy. That big old capacitor is a telltale signature when you check it with an ohm meter. The high ohm reading scale, the discharge capacitor will first look like an almost short circuit, and then it'll show increasing resistance as the capacitor begins to build up the charge from your ohm meter. Thus, if you're connecting your multimeter to set ohms to the capacitor, it will initially indicate low resistance and show an increasing resistance. All right, we're ready, right? What's the name for standardized representation of components in an electrical wiring diagram? What do the symbols on an electrical circuit schematic diagram represent? What do the symbols in an electronic circuit schematic diagram? Can we just do this one? There we go. Which of the following is accurately represented in an electrical circuit schematic diagram? What is component 3 in figure T3? B? D? There we go. The squiggly lines. What is component 4 in T3? Which of the following is used together with an inductor to make a tuned circuit?
B.
Capacitor. What is a simple resonant or tuned circuit? I've heard 3 A's. You guys got it. See, it was scary, wasn't it? You got it. What is component 1 in figure T1? Bingo. What is component 2 in T1?
B.
What is the function of component 2 in figure T1?
C.
What is component 3 in T1?
C.
Ah. Component 4?
C.
What type of switch is represented by item 3? Single pole, single throw? Component 4? The big ugly thing that has all the lines, comes in one side and exits the other side. What is figure number 6? Same capacitor. And figure 8. You hush. It is D. Piece of cake, right? All those, that big diagram when everybody leaned back and went, oh God. What is component number 9? C. Which of the following can be used to display signal strength on a numeric scale? You sure it's not a potentiometer? Huh? What best describes a relay? Correct. I don't know what an optical sensor would be doing in that diagram, but okay. What type of circuit controls the amount of voltage from a power supply? Controls voltage. And if it stores voltage? Never mind. What component is commonly used to charge 120 volt AC house current to a lower AC charge for other uses? Change, not charge. Apologies.
C.
It changes. If something changes, it transforms, right? What is the name of a device that combines several semiconductors and other components into one tiny little package? No, integrated circuit. It has all that stuff squeezed into the, what was it, Pete? IC? IC chip. What is the approximate amount of change measured? All right, everybody's ahead of me. In decibels of power increase from 5 to 10 watts. Everybody good with B? What's the approximate amount of change measured in decibels of power decrease? 12 to 3.
C.
What is the amount of change from 20 to 200? Ha. A? What does LED stand for? I thought it was C. Long echo delay? Big room. Not enough people in here. Which of the following is commonly used as a visual indicator? Well, I guess me standing here is the bipolar distraction. What is another way to specify a radio signal frequency of 1,500,000 hertz? Remember, moving your decimals. Okay. Well, I want to give everybody a shot. You know, these guys down front are just, they need to stay quiet. If a frequent readout, everybody's going with C on this. I didn't even read the question. We're all in agreement. How many volts are equal to 1 kilovolt?
1,000 volts.
See, 1,000? If an amateur calibrated in amperage is used to measure a 3,000 milliamp current, what is the reading? Which of the following frequencies is equal to 28,400 kilohertz? B? A. Remember moving that decimal.
You don't listen to me.
That's one big thing with I found with the test. If you know what it is, if you 9 times out of 10, if you second guess your first thought, it's which of the following equivalent of B? How many milliamperage is 1.5 amps?
C.
Move in the decimal place. How many microfads are in 1 million pictofads?
B.
Oh, I got a B and a C. 1. Moving the decimal place. Left or right, depends on what you're doing. How many volts are equal to 1 microvolt? Micro. It is A. Which of the following types of solder is best for electronic use? That's easy. If you use silver solder, it might be kind of expensive. Just saying. Aluminum, I wouldn't try. What is the characteristic appearance of a cold solder joint? Correct. Greenish tint, if anybody's done soldering, it's just the flux. It's fine. What is the characteristic appearance of a cold solder joint? Which of the following measurements are commonly made by using a multimeter?
B.
I got a really ooh-me look coming from the front end now. Which one? Which of the following measurements are commonly made made using a multimeter?
D.
Multiple meter, voltage, resistance, ohms meter.
Which of the following precautions should be taken when measuring circuit resistance with an ohm meter?
B.
B? B or C?
B.
No power for the ohms. No power for the ohms. Ohms, believe it or not, the way I remember that, ohms is total chill. No power, no nothing. You just sit there and ohm. Which of the following might damage a multimeter? Besides throwing it off a building or dropping it into the pond or some such thing?
You're letting me play with it.
Correct.
B.
B?
B.
C?
C.
If you're trying to measure the voltage when you want resistance. What is probably happening when an ohm meter connected across an unpowered circuit initially indicates a low resistance and then slowly starts increasing resistance with time?
C.
B.
Remember that one with the big tube? It was big and it needed a lot of time to charge up.
Okay, great, 97% done. How many people right now, if we were to surprise you and give you the test right at this moment, think that they passed it?
Really, guys? She's shaking her head too. I was like, you guys have this. You got this.
Okay, you have this.